Hi, welcome to KilKare Speedway. I'm Nate Pennington. I'd like to thank you for buying this Pin Stroke Productions at the Track videotape. We're here with the NASCAR Weekly Racing Series stock cars for the 4th of July Championships. You see the pickup truck there out back behind the camera stand. That is what's going to be here next week. The ARCA Truck Series. I'm not sure what they call them. Somebody said Super Trucks, and I know that's not right. But anyways, the ARCA Truck Series will be out here next week. But this week we have the 4th of July Championships, and we should get right on with it. I want to thank you once again for buying this Pin Stroke Productions at the Track videotape, and coming up next is going to be the heat races. And our first heat race of the night will be the Pure Stock Heat Race number 1 as those cars pull out on the track.
And our turn 3 flagman is down to.
And your lineup, as soon as the camera zooms in here a little bit, here we go. 75, Brian Cottrell. 57, Chris Popple. 24 is Sean Miller. 90, Steve Shaw. The 63 car is mystery driver, I have no idea. And out back to the 3 of Brian Roush. In a moment, the green flag.
This year will be a 60-lap event.
Cottrell, your leader. Sean Miller running second. 57, Chris Popple now takes over third. Brian Cottrell, your leader. It's still the 75 of Brian Cottrell. He's your leader. Sean Miller running second. Chris Popple third. Brian Roush in the 3 car. He runs fourth. White flag, 1 lap to go for your leader. Car number 75, Brian Cottrell. Miller making one last effort, coming high off 2, trying to get some momentum. It'll be too little too late. Your winner, car number 75, Brian Cottrell. Sean Miller comes home second, Chris Popple third, and rounding out your top 4, the 3 of Brian Roush. Once again, your winner, car number 75, Brian Cottrell.
And 4th place, the 90 of Steve Shaw. 5th is rounding out the field, the number 63 of Brent Clark. Our first heat race in the books here at
Heat race number 2 for the Pure Stocks. Ken Burnett will start outside or inside row number 1, out on the pole on this one. Outside row number 1, the 71 of Jeff Marsh. Then it's the 6 Craig Conover inside row number 2. Outside of him, the 53 of Tim Bilge. Then it's the 1 of Jeremy Everding. 28 is Danny Suffren.
Jeremy out of Brookville, Ohio.
Got a false start on that one. Caution comes back out. We'll re-rack them and get a restart here in just a moment. Complete restart, as we did have a false start there. Flagman Larry Betty's not liking what he saw up in the flag stand, so he says, hey guys, let's restart this one. takes over the lead. But looking to the inside, the 71 of Jeff Marsh now going into turns 1 and 2. And now Marsh spins over in 2. And Craig Conover will be looking underneath the 88 of Ken Burnett and gets around. Craig Conover now your leader as Tim Dilge moves up to look to the inside of the Ken Burnett machine. Your leader still Craig Conover. Dilge now spins over in turn 2 in the 53 car. Jeremy Everding now runs third behind Ken Burnett. Craig Conover is still your leader. White flag, 1 lap to go. For your leader, car number 6, Craig Conover. Car number 6, Craig Conover. Coming home second will be the 88 of Ken Burnett. Once again, your winner, car number 6, Craig Conover. Mini stock heat race. Ken Rutherford on the poles. Frank Harvey outside of him. Then it's the 60 Jerry Moore, the 6 Ron Wells. 10 is Brian Brewer, and the 87 of Tim Stratman. In a moment, the green flag.
In our mini stock division, 5 trucks, 4 trucks, 2 cars.
And I believe we'll call that one a false start.
Number 4
I don't know what kind of start that was, so we're going to get re-racked and hopefully get a restart here in just a moment. Okay, we're going to try this again. Ken Rutherford, Frank Harvey going to bring him down, hopefully to a green flag this time. And no, we don't get a green flag. Ken Rutherford and Frank Harvey.
Turn 3 area. Coming back on May the 5th, May the 12th.
Well, we're going to get another restart here, and this time Jerry Moore and Ron Wells are going to bring down the green flag. We're going to see if these two guys can do a little bit better job. Kenny Rutherford, Frank Harvey go to the tail.
Coming down the
start that time. In fact, on a side-by-side battle almost the entire first lap. Now Jerry Moore takes over the lead. Ron Wells falls back to second. Brian Brewer running third. And now Brewer spins over in turn 4. Whoa! Close call for 87 of Tim Stratman and the 17 of Frank Harvey. On the restart, Jerry Moore, Ron Wells, Kenny Rutherford. Green flag. Jerry Moore is still your leader. Ron Wells running second. Brian Brewer once again with a problem over in turn 4. He gets it back underway and we stay green. Jerry Moore still your leader. White flag, 1 lap to go. And your winner, truck number 60, Jerry Moore. Coming home second will be Ron Wells in the number 6 truck. 9, Kenny Rutherford third, and the 4th place will belong to the 87 of Tim Stratman. Once again, your winner, truck number 60, Jerry Moore. Virgil Powell, the pole of this one. Pro Stock Heat Race number 1, and I take that back. Looks like Ron Wells coming around. Take the pole as the field starts forming up behind the pace truck.
Man, that sounds good.
Virgil Powell.
It will be Virgil Powell, Ron Wells. Inside, outside, row number 1. Then it looks like it'll be the 2 of Rich Miller. Problems with the 12 of John Maloney. And the 22 of David Jakowski also out there. So we're going to see if we can't get the John Maloney car underway. And then we should get a green flag here momentarily.
Setting the field also out there in this. And we'll get one.
Lewis takes over the lead. Virgil Powell falls back to second. Ron Lewis still your leader. Virgil Powell now getting some pressure from Rich Miller in the 2 car. Machine for the 2nd spot. Your winner will be the 4 of Ron Lewis. Coming home second will be the 2 of Rich Miller. Virgil Powell having problems right at the end of the race. No doubt about your winner, car number 4, Ron Lewis.
Well, with John Maloney, David Jakowski, the crowd field. The number 4 of Ron Paul will be the number 20 of Ellis Lawrence.
He raced Jr. number 2 for the Pro Stocks, Ellis Lawrence and Daryl Norman. 97, Jeff Wilson. 14, Clark Wolf. 23 is Doug Jarnigan, and I know I'm missing a car. One out back is the 83 of Dave White.
The backstretcher at KilKare. Field getting set. 5 racers to take the green flag. Field getting set.
Ellis Lawrence, your leader. Jeff Wilson running second. Daryl Norman third. Battle for that fourth position as Doug Jarnigan gets around the 14, Clark Wolf. Your leader's still the 20 of Ellis Lawrence. Jeff Wilson right on his back bumper. Slowed down the front stretch in the 83. As the white flag comes out, Jeff Wilson looking to the inside of Ellis Lawrence. They're side by side down the back stretch, going into turn 3, and now Jeff Wilson takes over the lead. Jeff Wilson will win this heat race. Car number 97, your winner. The 20 of Ellis Lawrence comes home second. Third will go to the 23 of Doug Jarnigan. Once again, your winner with a last lap, last corner pass. Car number 97, Jeff Wilson. Heat race number 1 for the modifieds. Dick Dunleavy, Jerry Stapleton, Steve Rickard inside of row number 2. Outside him, one of Mike Carroll. 76 is Frank Harris, 17, Ed Lawrence. Out back, I'm not sure. They're going to heat them up. We'll give you the rest of the lineup in just a moment.
Number 2 is Steve Rickard.
All right, to kind of finish off the lineup. Back there in the back, I know, is the 10 of Steve Snap, among others. 13 is Brian Gray. And there was another car back there, but I'm not familiar with that one. Green flag has come out. Dick Dunleavy Jr., your leader in the 11th machine. 3 of Jerry Stapleton running second. Third, a battle between the Mike Carroll and Steve Rickard machines. For the modifieds, Gary Smith and Don Fleming Jr. start out on the front row. 88 is Dan Williams. The 6 is Derek Barnett. 5, Sky Hinkle.
8 laps will be in the distance. here at KilKare Speedway for this heat race.
And that one's going to be called a false start. We'll get it realigned and then it'll be started here in just a moment.
Match start. Very ready.
Gary Smith, your leader. 88 to Dan Williams running second. 31, Don Fleming Jr. third. Car number 25, Gary Smith. Excuse me, Gary Smith. Coming home second is the 31, Don Fleming Jr. 88, Dan Williams comes home third. Once again, your winner, car number 25, Gary Smith. Race number 1 for the late models. Car number 75, Gary Estes. 33, Carl Stapleton. 22, John Vallow. 17, Sam Heckman. 18, Greg Stapleton. 3, Dave Barnhart. And the 5 of Dick Dunleavy Jr.
Outside of row number 1, number 33.
Called a false start.
Barnhart will be starting on the east side of
good looking restart. John Vallow takes over the lead from Carl Stapleton. Stapleton now runs second. Third belongs to the 18 of Greg Stapleton. Fourth is Sam Heckman. Dunleavy running out your top 5 right now. Moves to the high side of the 17, Sam Heckman. John Vallow coming home second will be the 33 of Carl Stapleton. And the 18 of Greg Stapleton comes home third, and fourth will go to Dick Dunleavy Jr. with the 17 of Sam Heckman, rounding out your top five. Once again, your winner, car number 22, John Vallow.
And Dick Dunleavy Jr.
He raced number 2 for the late models. Dave Brandenburg will start outside or inside row number 1.
Is the number 2 of Dave Brandenburg. For the track, the 98 of Chris Stump. 34 of Dave Ellis out of the track. 43 of Will Bergen.
Outside of Brandenburg will be the 72 of Jerry Stapleton. 98 Chris Stump inside row number 2. 70 of Joe Hill outside of row number 2. 34 Dave Ellis and the 53 of Russ Bob. Then out back will be the 43 Will Spurgeon, the 27 of Brian Brandenburg, 29 Tony Brunke, and I believe it's the 53 of Russ Bob.
Row number 3 will have the 43 of Will Spurgeon and the 29 of Tony Brunke.
And just as we thought we were going to get the green flag, the yellow comes back out, pace truck comes back out on the track.
9 cars out there. Brandenburg, outside row number 1. Will be the 72 of Jerry Stapleton, the 98 of Chris Stump on the inside of row number 2. And the number 70 of Joe Hill on the outside of row.
Dave Brandenburg, your leader. Jerry Stapleton running second. Chris Stump third. Joe Hill running that byline. He runs fourth. Still your leader, Jerry Stapleton running second. Chris Stump and Joe Hill. Lap to go for your leader, car number 2, Dave Brandenburg. And your winner will be car number 2, Dave Brandenburg. Jerry Stapleton come home second, Chris Stump and Joe Hill round out your top 4. Once again, your winner, car number 2, Dave Brandenburg. And our first 4th of July championship feature of the night will be the Pro Stocks, and they're going to line up this way. Inside row number 1 is the 14 of Clark Wolf, outside of him the 3 of Darrell Norman. Row number 2, car number 97, Jeff Wilson, and the 23 of Doug Jarnigan. Row number 3, car number 12, John Maloney, and the 78 of Virgil Powell. And in row number 4, car number 20, Ellis Lawrence Jr., and the 83 of Dave White. Row number 5 is the 4 of Ron Lewis and the 22 of David Jakowski. And in row number 6, car number 2, Rich Miller.
Jeffrey Wilson on the inside of row number 2. Flag to start.
Daryl Norman takes over the lead. Doug Jarnigan running second in the 23 machine. Sideways down the front stretch. Third now belongs to the 78 of Virgil Powell. Jarnigan looks to the inside of Daryl Norman down the back stretch. And now Doug Jarnigan, your leader. Daryl Norman falls back to second. Virgil Powell still holding on to that third position. And caution's out. We got one up against the wall down the back straightaway. That is the 12 of John Maloney. On the restart, it will be Doug Jarnigan, Daryl Norman, Virgil Powell, Ron Lewis, and Jeff Wilson. And now Virgil Powell looks to the inside of Daryl Norman going through turns 1 and 2. Powell now takes over that second position. Ron Lewis will follow him through in third, and so does Jeff Wilson. So Daryl Norman falls all the way back to fifth position in a lap. As now Doug Jarnigan, your leader, Virgil Powell runs second. Ron Lewis third. Fourth belongs to Jeff Wilson, and Daryl Norman rounding out your top five. Jarnigan sideways coming out of turn 4. Really, that car's really been quite a... And sideways once again out of turn 2. Quite a job for Doug Jarnigan handling this car as it is sideways. What's coming at 2? Virgil Powell right there in the 78 machine. We got one slow over in turns 3 and 4. That's the 83 of Dave White. White's still moving. He's up against the wall on the high side of the track. He stayed green for the moment. And it looks like that Dave White might make it back to the pit area. Finds the fire in that car and does make it to the pit road exit over in turn 1, and we stay green. Doug Jarnigan, your leader. Virgil Powell running second. Ron Lewis third. Here comes Jeff Wilson looking to the high side of Ron Lewis down the front stretch. Virgil Powell, they make contact over in 2. Powell goes around, more contact. Caution comes out. On the restart, it will be Doug Jarnigan, Jeff Wilson, Rich Miller, Daryl Norman, and David Jakowski. Car is the 20 of Ellis Lawrence. I said David Jakowski earlier. That's the 20 of Ellis Lawrence running fifth. Your leader is the 23 of Doug Jarnigan sideways down the backstretch. Jarnigan, that car becoming quite a handful for your leader. As Jeff Wilson now moves to the high lane in the 97 machine. Looking for a way around your leader car number 23, Doug Jarnigan. Over the lead in the 97 machine. Doug Jarnigan runs second in the 23. Rich Miller third. Miller trying to find a way around the Doug Jarnigan machine. Making his way back up through the pack. He now runs fourth in the 4 car. Mike Miller continues to work on the 23 of Doug Jarnigan for second. As Jeff Wilson motors away with this one in the 97 machine. Rich Miller. Doug Jarnigan runs second, Rich Miller in third, Ron Lewis in fourth position. White flag, 1 lap to go for your leader, car number 97, Jeff Wilson. Winner will be car number 97, Jeff Wilson. Coming home second will be Doug Jarnigan. Third will go to Rich Miller. Fourth to the Ron Lewis machine. And rounding out your top 5 will be car number 20, Ellis Lawrence Jr. Once again, your winner, car number 97, Jeff Wilson. And now the 4th of July Championship for the NASCAR Weekly Racing Series late models. On the front row, this one is the car number 70 of Joe Hill. Outside him, the 01 of Gene Grace. Inside row number 2, car number 91, Scott Drake. And outside him, the number 2 of Dave Brandenburg. Row number 3 is the 75 of Gary Estes and the 33 of Carl Stapleton. Row number 4, car number 72, Jerry Stapleton, and the 17 is Sam Heckman. Row number 5, car number 22 is John Vallow, 98, Chris Stump. Row number 6, car number 34, Dave Ellis, and the 18 of Greg Stapleton. Row number 7, car number 3, Dave Barnhart, and the 53 of Russ Bob. Row number 8, car number 5, Dick Dunleavy Jr., and the 27 of Brian Brandenburg. And in row number 9, car number 43, Will Spurgeon, and outside him, the 29 of Tony Brunke.
Race on the outside, row number 1, row number 4. Will be number 17 of Sam Heckman.
Stapleton and Gene Grace side by side for 4th. Now Stapleton takes over the 4th position as Grace slips back on the high side. And Gene Grace with a spin, and a whole mess of cars are caught up in this one. We see the 33 Carl Stapleton, 17 Sam Heckman, 5 of Dunleavy is there, the 22 of Vallow is involved, the 18 of Greg Stapleton, 34 Dave Ellis, 2 Dave Brandenburg, 3 Dave Barnhart, the 53 of Russ Bobb, the 29 of Tony Brunke, and the 27 of Brian Brandenberry. All those cars involved in this incident. Let's take a look and see what we got on instant replay. Let's take a look at it first from Bill Yo's camera over in turn 3. As they come at you, you see the leader Joe Hill, and as the camera starts to pan out a little bit, we'll see Gene Grace already sideways. Can't tell map shot what started. He gets collected with the Dave Brandenburg machine and everybody else with no place to go. Let's look at it from my camera on the front stretch. And from the front stretch camera, let's see if there was contact or if Gene Grace. Looks to me as if Grace just kind of lost it on his own. I don't believe there was initial contact between him and Brandenburg as Grace started to go around. And KilKare Speedway gets awful narrow when a car gets sideways, and nobody else had any place to go.
Got 11 cars involved. We got a car with.
And we look at the damage to the Dave Barnhart machine as he gets the Jimmix towing escort back to the pits. Tough break for the 3 of David Barnhart. Most of these guys, the race just started, and to get collected up in something like this. And we see the 53 of Russ Bobb also getting a tow truck escort back to the pits. On the restart, it will be Joe Hill, Scott Drake, Gary Edges, Jerry Stapleton, and John Vallow. Advantage before this caution came out, and now Scott Drake right on his back bumper. Joe Hill, still your leader.
on slow down the back stretch, moving to a near stop. That's the 5 of Nick Dunleavy Jr. I don't know if he's going to be able to make it to a safe portion of the track. And the caution does come out for the 5 of Dunleavy Jr. Of course, as soon as the caution comes out, Dunleavy finds the fire under the hood and is able to get that car restarted. And he goes directly to the pits. On the restart, it will be Joe Hill, Scott Drake, Jerry Estes, Jerry Stapleton, Carl Stapleton. 14 of the 35 laps now complete. Scott Drake looking to the high side of Joe Hill now down the back stretch. Out on the track right in front of the leaders. He's at least one lap down. Joe Hill now looking to the high side of Dunleavy. Car, it's going to be tough to make the pass. Now Joe Hill moves that high lane as Dunleavy moves down to the low part of the front stretch, and both Joe Hill and Scott Drake get around going into turn 1 as the rest of the leaders continue to work off the Dunleavy machine. Joe Hill, your leader. Battling side by side behind Dunleavy. Now Estes gets around and Stapleton will move to the high side of Dunleavy next. A bit of a battle farther back in the pack. John Ballo, Chris Stump, Dave Brandenburg, and Gene Grace. Up front, Joe Hill still your leader. Scott Drake's being run with him. He's in second. up to speed, but has lost several positions. Top 5 will be car number 98, Chris Stock. Once again, your winner, car number 70, Joe Hill. And the KilKare Modifieds pulling out on the track for their 4th of July Championship feature event, and they're going to line up this way. Car number 17, he takes the pole. That's Ed Lawrence. Outside of him, the 25 of Gary Smith. Row number 2, car number 76, Frank Harris, and the 2 of Steve Rickard. Row number 3, car number 1, Mike Carroll, and the 88 of Dan Williams. Row number 4, car number 3, Jerry Stapleton, and the 31, Don Fleming Jr. Row number 5, Dick Dunleavy Jr., and the 58 of Kevin Colvin. Row number 6, car number 5, Sky Hinkle, and the 10 of Steve Snap. And in row number 7, car number 86, Roy Sowers, and the 13 of Brian Gray. And out back in row number 8, car number 6, Derek Barnett. Gary Smith, your leader. Ed Lawrence running second with Steve Rickard right on his back bumper. Fourth belongs to the 76 of Frank Harris right now, as Mike Carroll looks to the high side of the Harris machine. Jerry Stapleton also right there in the 3 car. Ed Lawrence has second, Mike Carroll on the inside, and Steve Rickard on the outside, battling for third. Just counted turn 4. That is the 3 of Jerry Stapleton. Caution comes out for the first time in this race. On the restart, it will be Gary Smith, Ed Lawrence, 1 and 2. Third belongs to Mike Carroll. Fourth, Frank Harris, and rounding out your top 5, the 2 of Steve Rickard. 6 laps now complete as we get ready to go back to green flag racing. And also collecting that was another car. The 88 of Dan Williams came around, no place to go, and hit the front of Steve Snap. Caution back out on the track once again. On the restart, it will be 25, Gary Smith, 17, Ed Lawrence, 1 of Mike Carroll, 76 is Frank Harris, and then the 2 of Steve Rickard. 7 laps now complete. We get ready to go back to green flag racing. Both Steve Snap and Dan Williams getting the tow truck escort back to the pits. Dunleavy now looks to the high side of Don Fleming Jr. As Mike Carroll also moves into that high lane, and the caution comes back out. Don't see any immediate problem on the track. Maybe some debris. On the restart, it will be Gary Smith, Ed Lawrence, Mike Carroll, Frank Harris, and Don Fleming, your top 5. And 8 of the 25 laps now complete for the 4th of July Championship modified event. Looking to the high side of Ed Lawrence down the back stretch. Carroll on the move in the 1 machine. And now Mike Carroll takes over second spot. He'll set his sights on the 25 of Gary Smith. Steve Rickard a little sideways through turn 4. Dunleavy underneath him. As your 2 leaders go at it side by side, Gary Smith on the inside, Mike Carroll on the outside. Smith better line through turn 4 that time. Carroll slips back just a little bit. As Don Fleming Jr. and Ed Lawrence do battle for the 3rd spot. Now Mike Carroll tucked back in behind Gary Smith. Takes a look outside once again down the front stretch. And going into turns 1 and 2, they're side by side once again. Coming at you down the back stretch, side by side for the lead. Mike Carroll on the outside. Battle for 3rd. And continue side by side battle for the lead. Carroll's slight advantage over Gary Smith going through turn 2. Down the back stretch. Now Gary Smith pulls back just a little bit in turn 4. As they continue battling a little bit farther back in the pack. Second on back to about 10. Close bumper to bumper action as they continue to battle side by side for the lead. Traffic. Steve Rickard now ahead of Don Fleming Jr. for 3rd position. Steve Rickard now runs 3rd, I believe. And leaders cleared the lap traffic, and immediately Mike Carroll goes back to work on the high side on your number 25, Gary Smith. Mike Carroll now moves to the high lane once again. Last time down the backstretch, Gary Smith with the advantage. And your winner will be car number 25, Gary Smith. Mike Carroll comes home second. Third will go to Steve Rickard. Fourth to the Don Fleming Jr. machine. And rounding out your top five will be Jerry Stapleton in the 3 machine. Once again, your winner, car number 25, Gary Smith. And now it's time for the Pure Stock 4th of July Championship feature. Inside row number 1, car number 28 is Danny Suffren. Outside him, the 90 of Steve Shaw. Row number 2, car number 53, Tim Dilge, and the 57 of Chris Popoff. Row number 3, car number 24, Sean Miller, and the 6 of Craig Conover. Row number 4, car number 8, Ken Burnett, and the 71 of Jeff Marsh. Row number 5, car number 1, Jeremy Everding, 75, Brian Cottrell. Row number 6, car number 3, Brian Roush, and the 63 of Brett Clark. And in row number 7, car number 01, Potter Ledford.
Backstretch they go.
And that one's a false start. We'll get them re-racked and get them restarted here in just a moment. Okay, after a couple of false starts, guys forgetting the moment what the white flag means. Backstretch flagman Don Betties tells him, hey guys, let's think about this one. We're getting ready to go. Suffren leads lap number 1, battle for second between Tim Dilge and Chris Popoff. Also a battle for the 4th position between Sean Miller and Craig Conover. Now Miller looks to the inside of Chris Popoff, battle for 3rd. As Tim Dilge runs in second, Danny Suffren still your leader. Sean Miller takes over that 3rd position. Tim Dilge runs second. Danny Suffren still your leader. Are scrambling to get around the lap car, Brett Clark. The 63 machine really slow on the track. That's been a problem of late here at KilKare Speedway. Not only do we have lap cars, we have extremely slow lap cars. In my opinion, the 63 car is way too slow. Danny Suffren still your leader. Running second is the 88 of Ken Burnett. 24 Sean Miller third. I don't know where Ken Burnett came from. I missed that one. And now the 3 of Brian Roush slides into the infield. And we will have a caution, I believe, for the Ken Burnett, or excuse me, the Brian Roush machine. No caution isn't yet. Now the caution comes out. He's sitting there a little bit too close to the edge of the track. And cannot find the fire underneath that machine. And we got Steve Shaw coming out back on the track just as the white flag comes out. On the restart it will be Danny Suffren, Ken Burnett, Sean Miller, Tim Dilge, and Jeremy Everdeen. Spinning down the backstretch. That's the 75 of Brian Cottrell. We see that car has lost a wheel as the wheel came up and hit the car on the back end. It must be the right rear. On the restart, it will be Danny Suffren, Ken Burnett, and then I believe it's Sean Miller. Is that right? And the 53 of Tim Dilge, and then the 1 of Jeremy Everdeen. Closing on the 28 of Danny Suffren, right on his back bumper going into turn 1. Danny Suffren still your leader. Ken Burnett right on his back bumper in second, and Sean Miller right on Ken Burnett's back bumper. He runs third. Laps to go for your leader, car number 28, Danny Suffren. Ken Burnett still right on Danny Suffren's back bumper. Over in turn 2, Craig Conover and Chris Popoff spinning over in turn 2. With just 2 laps to go, we're back to green flag racing. Danny Suffren, your leader. Ken Burnett running second. flag. 1 lap to go for your leader, car number 28, Danny Suffren. And your winner will be car number 28, Danny Suffren. Ken Burnett comes home second. Sean Miller will bring home the third position. Tim Dilge in fourth, and rounding out your top 5 will be the 1 of Jeremy Everdy. Once again, your winner, car number 28, Danny Suffren.
4th of July Firecracker Championship of it.
As you can see, the mini stocks are up on the track for their 4th of July Championship feature event, and they're going to line up this way. Inside row number 1 is truck number 10, Brian Brewer. Outside him, the 9 of Kenny Rutherford. Row number 2 is truck number 60, Jerry Moore, and the 17 of Frank Harvey. Row number 3, 45, Eddie Flores, 6 of Ron Wells, and in row number 4, car number 87, Tim Stratman. Brewer spins coming out of turn 2 in the 10 truck. And that'll take us right to caution. And now, complete restart for the mini stocks. Get them all relined again. Machine. He will lead lap number 1. Ron Wells now with a spin coming out to turn 4 in the 6 truck. Brian Brewer slow in the 10. And caution comes back out. On the restart, it will be Frank Harvey, Kenny Rutherford, Jerry Moore, Eddie Flora, and Tim Stratman. Side of Kenny Rutherford as Ron Wells goes to work on the 45 of Eddie Flora. Now Wells getting around Eddie Flora. He now runs 4th. Frank Harvey is still your leader. Wells now looks to the inside of Jerry Moore down the front stretch. Can't quite get the job done. We got another one spinning over in turn 4. That is the 87 Tim Stratman. Car rolls back into the infield, and we stay green. Wells now, high side. Working on the Kenny Rutherford machine for second. Ron Wells now takes over second in truck number 6. He sets his sights on the leader, car number 17, Frank Harvey. See the 17 flash past, and there goes the 6 of Ron Wells. Wells has his job cut out for him. If there are no further cautions in this race, Ron Wells will have to do a lot of catching up to get up there to battle for the lead. Brian Brewer, Eddie Flora, Kenny Rutherford, and Jerry Moore all battling for that third position, excuse me. There goes second, the 6 of Ron Wells. And there goes your leader, car number 17, Frank Harvey, flashing through the picture. Jerry Moore spins over in turn 4. He rolls it back into the infield. But caution comes out. On the restart, it will be the 17 of Frank Harvey, the 6 of Ron Wells, 45 Eddie Flora, 9 of Kenny Rutherford, and the 10 of Brian Moore. Wells looks to the inside, coming out of turn 2. Looking to the inside, coming out of turn 4. Can't quite get the job done. Frank Harvey still your leader. Ron Wells running second. Frank Harvey coming home second is the truck of Ron Wells, number 6. Third will go to Eddie Flora, fourth to Kenny Rutherford, and rounding out your top 5 will be the 60 of Jerry Moore. Once again, your winner, car number 17, Frank Harvey. I'd like to thank you all once again for buying this Pinstruck Productions at the Track videotape. Please keep in mind that we not only videotape here at KilKare Speedway each and every week, but at Columbus Motor Speedway with the exclusive to the NASCAR Ohio version each and every week to tracks in Ohio. And we have the exclusive video rights to both tracks. Once again, thank you for buying this Pinstruck Productions at the Track videotape. For my wife Kim, my partner Bill Yo, our production assistants Mike Brown and Katie Moore, I'm Nate Pennington. We'll see you right here next week at the track.